Hi, this is Evan Hutcheson, and today I'm going to try to quickly go over the completed contract method, which is the method small to medium-sized home builders use to file their taxes rather than cash or accrual. So I have a dummy company open on QuickBooks. That's the ABC company right here. And what I do in order to file all builders on the completed contract method, they all have QuickBooks. I export the P&L cash basis for the year to Excel. I also do a filter for all the jobs that are completed. You go down to name, and then you just go to multiple names, and you can click on every job that was completed during the year and do a P&L with columns for each job. I'll also export that to Excel. I'll then do the same thing for all the uncompleted jobs. So I have this spreadsheet. It's got all the completed jobs here under a P&L with a total at the end, the grand total of all the completeds. That's the total income. These are all the total expenses. I do the same thing for the uncompleted, total income, total expenses. I then have an overhead allocation spreadsheet that I don't export. I just make myself. Actually, I do export like the accounts, but this right here is strictly from, well, this completed column is just adding up the total completed income and expenses. As you can see, that's 4.9 million, same as the completed total income right here. The income, or the uncompleted, is the same way. The uncompleted column is the total of all the uncompleted income and expenses. I then take a total of those two amounts right here, and then I take percentages of each of them. So this 4.9 million out of the total 6.65 million is 73.89%. This 1.73 million is 26%. So that's the income. That's how I'm allocating the income for overhead costs, which I'll go over shortly. I'm doing the same thing down here for expenses. These total expenses right here, I'm taking the total expenses for the completed job, the total expenses for the uncompleted job, and taking those allocations right here. 64% of total expenses were for completed, 35.7% were for uncompleted. So another thing, and I'll get back to that shortly. Another tab I need to make on the spreadsheet is the previous. See, when I do 2015 taxes, this is 2014. When I do 2015, I'm going to take this uncompleted contracts tab, I'm going to copy it over to 2015, because since they were uncompleted in 2014, none of this income and expense was taken. I'm going to have to take it for 2015 taxes. That's what I did right here. It's a stupid name. I should probably name it something differently. 2013 finished, uncompleted in 2013. So these jobs were the uncompleted in 2013 list. So these are jobs that were, these are expenses from 2013 that were for jobs that were unfinished in 2013 and finished in 2014. So I have to account for those on 2014 taxes. The bottom line is $214,000 of net income. So I'm basically just copying this uncompleted to the next to your spreadsheet and renaming it. Now all this is going to go together at the end. I'm just kind of going over each individual one. So we have these, and the same thing with 2013 P&L. Here's the 2014 P&L. When I do the 2015 taxes, I'm just going to copy this over to the 2015. I'll show you why in just a second. I'll go to 2014 first. All right, 2014. This is the P&L that I exported from QuickBooks. This is just the cash basis P&L for the year. I take these numbers line by line and I figure out, okay, first, what should not be allocated towards overhead? What has no bearing on the jobs that we do at all, the different jobs? Well, this is just a weird income account. This has no bearing. Bank service charges has no bearing. It's just we're going to get charged this no matter how many jobs we do. Charitable contributions, computer expenses, credit card fees, employee benefits, gifts, and so forth. Everything highlighted in green is not being allocated. So I'm moving that over here, so when I do my tax spreadsheet, which is actually the final numbers that I'm using to file my taxes, these are different additions from different tabs over here. One of the additions will be this column right here, because we're directly taking this off this here. We then have the column for uncompleted plus completed. This is straight from the overhead allocation worksheet. You see the 6.65 million and all these expenses. These are in this column right here. Because as you'll see later, I'm directly writing off the completed. I'm directly not writing off the uncompleted. So we are going to take these numbers from the overhead allocation, take these numbers that were directly allocated, and make sure we don't use those for overhead since we're already using them. Or in the case of the uncompleted, we're not using them and we don't want to use them for overhead. So this column right here is the total P&L minus what we're already using. So minus this, number, minus this, and so forth. So this 1040.68 is this 1040.68 minus this, which is nothing, minus this, which is nothing. Now this column, of course, is going to have the income, and it's going to have a lot of cost of goods sold, which is all these pre-construction, site work, excavation, concrete, and so forth. It's not going to have many of these operating expenses because they're not allocated to specific jobs, and this column's just for all the jobs from completed and uncompleted. But anyways, we're taking these numbers and subtracting these numbers and these numbers to get here. Then we have these numbers, which are we have not accounted for at all, because we have so far only accounted for the completed, uncompleted, and the directly allocated. So we're taking these numbers and we're going to allocate them to the taxes, to either completed or uncompleted, if that makes sense. The overhead allocation spreadsheet right here is 73% income for completed, 26% for uncompleted, which is up here too. This just transfers over from that spreadsheet. So we're taking these overhead differences and multiplying them by the rates. So for the income, we're multiplying the completed column by 73.8%. We're multiplying the uncompleted by 26.1%. And with all the expenses all the way down the line, all these expenses, we're multiplying the completed, we're multiplying for interior paint labor, we're multiplying this 8973, which is the difference between the total P&L and the direct allocation and the completed and the uncompleted. We're multiplying it by 64% for completed right here and 35.7% for uncompleted. So when we get to the final page that we're using to file our taxes, we're just adding up the different columns that we need to add up to come up with these numbers. So for instance, if we go down here to concrete, this is the total concrete expense that we're including on our taxes as a cost of goods sold. We're getting this from adding the previous year's uncompleted that is now completed, which is this number right here, the 278. You see total concrete for uncompleted in 2013, plus the concrete for 2014 that was completed of 194,000. We are not including this uncompleted concrete number because we'll be including that on the following year's tax return. We skip over this. This is just for calculation purposes. We go to 2013 P&L, which is what we should have copied from the previous year's tax return, and we go down to the concrete and we use the uncompleted number. This is the uncompleted overhead number from the previous year, which we did not include on the previous year's tax return. So we need to include it on this year's. It's all the overhead well, sorry, that's not even the right row. It's well, it's these two added together. It's just what we did not include from the previous year that we need to include this year. 2014, we will instead use the completed column. So we use this total number right here. So the taxes are those 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers added together to come up with 560,000. And we do that for everything. You know, that's the cost of goods sold down here. Those are the totals for each category. These are some of the operating expenses. So like for computer and internet expense, it's not going to have anything under the completed or the uncompleted or the previous year's completed, because that's not a expense for a job. You know, it's not like the concrete expense or framing. It's an office expense, an admin expense. So we get this number from, if we look at both the 2013 and the 2014 computer internet expense, that was a direct allocation. So since we use this, since it's a direct allocation, we're not using anything for the 2013 P&L. It was all written off in 2013. That's why it's blank over here. For 2014, I'm guessing it is also directly allocated, and it is this number right here. So the tax is just that 660 right here. So after we get all these numbers, then we start putting them on the return. Here's the total income. Here's some operating expenses, and here are all the purchases / cost of goods sold to come up with the total net income at the very bottom, which is obviously your income minus all your expenses. So I hope this helps. I try to rush through it because I know it's long. If you have any questions on it, feel free to contact me. I do a lot of work through virtual services, so I do a lot of home building services through virtual accounting. I like to go to GoToMeeting initially to have a video conference with new clients to kind of get a feel for, make sure everything's a good fit, and make sure everyone understands everyone else clearly. So if you do want to use my services, just feel free to contact me and we will figure out a way to get together. I hope this helps. Thanks.